You there?
Yep, right, Arthur.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. So Arthur Miller is Emeritus Professor of History and Philosophy of Science at the University College London. He's author of many critically acclaimed books, including the Pulitzer Prize-nominated Einstein, Picasso, Space-Time and the Beauty That Causes Havoc, and Colliding Worlds: How Cutting-Edge Science is Redefining Contemporary Art. His most recent book on AI and creativity in art, literature, and music, The Artist in the Machine, the world of AI-powered creativity, has just come out in paperback, and I cannot recommend Arthur's work more highly. I managed to see him speak, I believe, at the Conway Hall just before
Yes, that's
lockdown.
right.
So directly over to you, Arthur.
Now, thank you. Thank you, Carl, for your very generous introduction. And I thank you all for attending, however, virtually. Now, knock, knock. Who's there? Alec. Alec who? I like knock, knock jokes. Well, that's kind of lame, but I'll bet not many of you guessed that that joke was created by a machine. It's a start. Creativity has always been a controversial topic, but even more so in the age of AI, where it has been extended from humans to machines. And this is what I will discuss this afternoon: the world of AI-powered creativity. Now, machines have already shown glimpses of creativity when running algorithms like Deep Dream, which create bizarre and hitherto unimaginable images; Alphago, which plays championship Go; generative adversarial networks that generate images and assess them too; and creative adversarial networks that create new art styles. More about these exotic creatures later. Now we may ask, how do we move on from here? How can we evolve more creative machines? To do so, we need to understand precisely what we mean by creativity in terms that are applicable to humans as much as to machines. But many people today believe that the term machine creativity is an oxymoron. Actually, because how can something made up of wires and transistors be as creative as an Einstein, Picasso, a Shakespeare, a Bach, or a Beethoven? Yet we are merely an amalgam of nerves, veins, arteries, bones, muscles, cells, and we manage to be creative. The great question is, what makes us creative? How can new concepts emerge from those already established in the brain? How can a system, a person, or a machine produce products that go far beyond the material it has to work with? My own theory of creativity emerged from my studies of highly creative people, and this has led me to define creativity as the production of new knowledge or artifacts from what already exists. It's accomplished by the process of problem solving. Now, indicators that the new idea or object is creative are whether they are surprising, novel, complex, or ambiguous. These judgments are highly subjective, and so must be handled with care. So in the end product, creativity is an idea or object that has never existed before, and the process by which it is achieved is problem solving. Now, scientists solve problems, but so do artists, musicians, and writers. And it's the process of problem solving that sparks their creativity. So no problem, no creativity. So how are problems solved? What more can we say about this process? In 1908, the French philosopher, scientist, mathematician, and keen observer of creativity, Henri Poincaré, suggested a four-stage method for problem solving. First, the researchers sit at their desk and solve a problem consciously. They will undoubtedly get stuck. The experienced researcher will take a break. But that break is only a conscious break because the intense, passionate desire to solve a problem keeps it alive in the unconscious, where it can be turned around in ways not possible in consciousness. And along these lines, it can hopefully solve the problem at hand. And this solution or illumination will then percolate up through consciousness, percolate up and appear in conscious thought as the verification stage. This is a very important stage because problem solutions do not pop out fully formed in golden shiny form. Rough edges must be honed off, deductions have to be sought. Now at this point we ask, what drives creativity? What are the dynamics of creativity? I call these characteristics of creativity, and among those which emerge from my studies of highly creative people are inspiration, suffering, introspection, imagination, and a high degree of competitiveness. We are reminded here of Steve Jobs' audacious theft of a revolutionary computer interface that had been invented at Xerox Corporation. Then there is unpredictability and being out there and having worldly experiences like falling in love. And at a very high level, there's problem discovery and finding connections between apparently disparate concepts. Some of you will have noticed that there is an emotive dimension to some of these characteristics of creativity. And we know that the mixture of emotions and unpredictability is highly flammable and can spark the new idea. The Viennese physicist Erwin Schrödinger sought for months the equation that would carry his name in quantum physics, and lo and behold, he discovered it in the course of a passionate, illicit weekend with a paramour. So later on, I will return to how machines can possess human characteristics of creativity and so be creative like us. For now, enough of theory. Let's look at an actual case of human creativity. This is how Alex Mortvensev created the algorithm Deep Dream. This is Mortvensev and myself at last year's highly prestigious Lumen Arts competition exhibition in London, where I served as judge for AI-created art. Now, Deep Dream was the first algorithm that allowed artificial neural networks to create stunning new art. And the creation narrative that I'm about to describe to you is straight from an interview I did with Mortvensev for my book, The Artist and the Machine. And I was elated that it reflected my own view of creativity. So in 2015, Mortvensev worked as an engineer at Google's offices in Zurich. The problem that was utmost on his mind was that, and went right to the heart of AI, was that we know that artificial neural networks work, but we're not sure how. Now, Google gives their employees 1 day a week to work on a problem, on a Google-related problem, other than the one they're tasked with, and Mortvensev chose this one. It was a brave choice for the young man. Inspired by the challenge, he got down to conscious work. The path on which he persevered was to see whether research into computer vision could shed any light on the knotty problem of how artificial neural networks work. So I asked him at that point, so what did you do during the other 6 days a week? Did you just forget about this problem? And he said, no, it was always on my mind. Indeed, the intense, passionate desire to solve a problem keeps it alive in the unconscious. And so it was that in the middle, at a little past midnight, on 18 August 2015, Mortvensev awoke with a start. He thought he had heard a sound in the living room. Was there an intruder in the house? He leapt out of bed, ran inside. There was no one there. And then suddenly he said to me, he saw himself surrounded by dozens of beautiful ideas. And one of them crystallized to a point where he could begin programming. This was the solution to the problem that he set out on to solve the knotty problem of how artificial neural networks function. It goes along the following lines. Mortvensev realized that what one should do is take an image, feed it to the machine, stop analysis at a certain point, certain layer of neurons, and ask the machine, what do you see right now? And it is for this purpose that he created Deep Dream. Then he went into the verification phase where he cleaned up the solution, wrote code, and wrote a detailed technical report, all this at white heat until 2 a.m. in the morning. Then he fed a JPEG to a machine running Deep Dream. This JPEG, he used only the cat part, the adorable cat with a verdant background, and he stopped analysis partway through the machine, which was running Deep Dream. And he said to the machine, what do you see right now? And whatever you see, I want more of it. The machine was running Deep Dream. And this is what the machine saw, something like this. Surreal, amazing. It's sometimes called a monster beast. It's a cat-like thing with 2 additional eyes on its head, 2 eyes on its haunches, and canine attributes distributed over its body. The verdant background is a mosaic with spiders crawling on it. What's going on here is that Deep Dream overinterprets an image. So that, for example, you look at a cloud, you look at it long enough, you may see birds in it. You feed that image to an artificial neural network running Deep Dream, stop analysis partway through. It sees the cloud with birds in it. You recycle the image, recycle it, and the birds are right, but with body parts made up of images, parts of images that the machine had been trained on. So Deep Dream gives us the means to study how a single neuron or group of neurons contributes to an emergent image, and in that way points us in the right direction, although it doesn't completely solve the problem of how artificial neural networks work. Okay, enough of human creativity. Let's look at machine creativity. Now, like us, machines are problem-oriented and work with data in their memory. There is no conscious level because presently machines have no consciousness. Instead, we give them a problem to work on, they mull over it in their unconscious, and hopefully we'll come up with a solution. Let's look at some of the creative machines I mentioned earlier. Alphago is an algorithm that was created to run on an artificial neural network, and it was invented at DeepMind in London. In 2016, it trounced a highly regarded Go master, Lee Sedol, and at that point, everyone agreed that the venerable game of Go had been cracked by a machine, a momentous event. Alphago learned, that is to say, taught itself how to play Go by studying 30 million board positions taken from games played by Go masters, and then reinforced this knowledge by playing against itself millions of times. Alphago made many extraordinary moves, but the one that everyone remembers is move number 37 from game number 2 of the 5-game sequence. It was a move you were not supposed to make at that point in a game of Go, and in fact, Lee and the Alphago team thought the machine had hit a glitch, but they quickly realized it was a killer move. Indeed, it turned out that the machine had calculated that the odds of a human being making that move was 1 in 10,000. This was move number 37. It was more than a glimmer of creativity. Let's imagine taking, let's in fact take a JPEG of Van Gogh's Starry Night, feed it to a machine, stop analysis partway through, the machine's running Deep Dream. What does the machine see? It sees something like this. Well, we don't see that. And indeed, AlphaGo can imagine situations we cannot, while Deep Dream can see things we cannot. Now, until 2014, artificial neural networks were very good at recognizing faces and animals, but not very good at generating images. And then generative adversarial network came on the scene, or GAN. And GAN is made up of 2 networks: a generator network that generates images from nothing, that is to say noise, and a discriminatory network that assesses whether these images are true or not relative to what is in its database. So GANs can allow a machine to dream, to imagine, to begin to form, and in a life of its own. Let's see what it can do in art. Mario Klingemann is a pioneering AI artist. An AI artist is a new breed of artist. The AI artist is artist and technologist rolled into one. The AI artist creates with code. As Klingemann said to me, human creativity is limited, which I wholeheartedly agree with, the implication being that machine creativity is unlimited. Here are 2 images from Klingemann's vast repertoire that he created using GAN. They are surprising, in fact, unsettling, novel, complex, and ambiguous. They check all the boxes for creativity. Ahmed El Gamal is a computer scientist / art aficionado who believes that style in art is everything. And he created an algorithm that he calls Creative Adversarial Network. It's a spin-off of GAN that can create new art styles. Having trained this machine on over 80,000 images from Western art over the period 1400 to 2000, he asked the machine, create me a new art style. And it created an abstract one that produces images that are surprising, novel, complex, and ambiguous. Many people think that these images were made by a human artist. Surprise, surprise, they were made by a machine. And the kicker here is that judges assess the quality of many of these images to be better than the quality of some of the work exhibited at the 2016 Art Basel Fair. And I assure you that ruffled a lot of feathers in the art community. I want next to discuss a situation in which AI and human bootstrap each other's creativity. I have in mind Francois Pachet's Continuator. Some years ago, and Pachet is a computer scientist / musician who presently directs Spotify's creative technical research lab in Paris. Some years ago, Pachet came up, as Pachet said to me, how do you compose a compelling song? A song that remains in your head and the heads of millions of people. And by song, Pache included melodies from improv. Pache is keen on jazz. And some years ago, he came up with the problem of how can I improve a musician's creativity in improvising in jazz. And the solution he came up with was the AI device Continuator. I'm going to play you a video clip in which a musician begins to improvise, and then the Continuator, the AI device, cuts in seamlessly with an improvisation that it created in reply to the musician's improvisation. Usually, improvisation is considered to be a conversation between a musician and a musical instrument. Here's a conversation between a musician and an AI. Listen to that for a while, but unfortunately we have to move on. Let's pause before taking the plunge into discussing whether machines can have human characteristics of creativity and so be creative like us. We have seen that even in their current somewhat limited state, machines have shown glimmers of creativity, and this is a substantial step forward. When we make a substantial step forward and produce something that goes way beyond the material we have to work with, we call that creativity. Why not recognize the machine's creativity in the same way? Why the pushback? I believe that many people balk at the very thought of machine creativity because they're afraid of it actually coming to pass. But why should creativity be an attribute reserved only for us? For example, what all definitions of art have in common is that the final product must have been instigated by a human being. But why must there always be a human in the loop? Taking this stance means that while machines can create art, they can never truly be artists. Game over, read no further. But in the age of AI, this argument is totally wrong-headed, ignoring as it does dazzling research in AI that points to a future in which machines will be creative and will have emotions, volition, and consciousness. So let us now begin to discuss how machines can have human characteristics of creativity and so be creative like us. Let's begin with competitiveness. Now, highly creative work often operates in a distinctly Darwinian environment. One must fight for the acceptance of one's ideas, and great thinkers have been known to steal from their competitors. Can machines have this characteristic? Well, as a robotics group at l'École Polytechnique Fédérale in Lausanne write of some of their research, sophisticated forms of communication and deceptive signaling can evolve in groups of robots with simple neural networks. In other words, we can evolve robots that can be deceptive, can even lie, forms of emotion. Even among robots, there is survival of the fittest. Now, a key element of creativity is unpredictability, going beyond logic. That usually results in unconscious thought. Might it be possible for machines too to be unpredictable? As it happens, predictability is built into machines. Recall move number 37 that Alphago made. An example of this is as follows. A machine is made up of a huge number of parts, each of which is designed according to the laws of Newtonian science with determinism and causality. But when you put all of them together, it is possible for chaotic behavior to emerge, that is to say, unpredictability. This can happen, for example, because numbers are transferred between different parts of a machine. These numbers have to be rounded off. Each rounding off results in a tiny bit of imprecision, which can snowball into chaos, a chaotic event, or unpredictability. It's like the butterfly effect, where a tiny butterfly in Brazil can flutter its wings and cause massive storms in the Northern Hemisphere. So in humans, emotions plus unpredictability can be explosive and trigger creativity. So can machines have emotions? Actually, competitiveness and unpredictability already involve emotions. Now, people might argue that machines cannot be truly creative because they are not out there in the world having emotional experiences like communing with nature and falling in love. But they can acquire such knowledge vicariously. In the not too distant future, machines will be able to read a language with fluency, having knowledge of all its nuances and tropes. And in that way, along those lines, machines will be able to convince themselves, and I should say, let me backtrack, and so they will be able to truly read the web and be able to acquire more emotions that we can in a lifetime. And along those lines, they will be able to acquire experiences that seem to be essential to creativity, such as emotions, love, anger, and hate. And eventually machines will be wired with complex systems of sensors, regulatory mechanisms, and communication pathways, by means of which they will evolve a set of emotions that are duplicates of ours. Now, some years ago at Ars Electronica, I met this gorgeous lady who's a sex bot. Presently, they have clumsy responses and comic book-like appearances, but I assure you, this will all be fixed up. And in the future, we can well imagine that sex bots will dramatically affect human relations. By that time, the notion of what it is to be a human will also have been dramatically transformed. And indeed, perhaps, artificial intimacy will be the real intimacy. Now, presently, a stumbling block for machines to be creative is that they have no awareness. They haven't got the clue that they've just made a beautiful move in chess or Go, that they've just painted a beautiful painting, and robot comedians are not aware at all that they have just cracked a hilarious joke. Machines cannot be considered to be truly creative until they have emotions, awareness, volition, and consciousness, all of which will give them the urge to create. So what is consciousness, and will machines ever have it? Two key elements essential to consciousness are awareness and self-awareness. Machines already have a low-level self-awareness, and that they're aware of the problem they're working on and of their own circuitry. Now, consciousness is our essence, our being, our inner life, and so is crucial for creativity. Many philosophers argue that consciousness is such a personal realm of being that it cannot be investigated with science. But in the age of AI, the problem of consciousness has moved from the philosophical to the scientific. I've struggled for many years trying to understand consciousness, and I've concluded that it results from the data processing of information by the 100 billion neurons in our brain. And so consciousness is computable, it's reducible to numbers, and so there is no reason why machines cannot have consciousness. For more, see my book. I want to say a few words now about problem discovery, the discovery of the proper research problem, and finding connections between disciplines that seem to be unconnected. This is research at its very highest level, at a level populated by the ilk of scientists like Einstein. But I don't want to be construed that I'm restricting my considerations to scientists. I include also artists, musicians, and writers, of course. All of these people can make big breakthroughs, major breakthroughs, and cause their disciplines to move in unexpected directions. Can machines work at this level? Can they make such breakthroughs? Astoundingly, the machines have the potential to do so, because we remember that text and equations can be encoded in numbers, and numbers are grist for the mill of artificial neural networks, shown here in all their glory next to Einstein. Let's go into the far future, at which time artificial neural networks will be equipped with all knowledge that has ever accrued on this planet. And let's set them loose on physics, and perhaps they'll notice an area of physics that's rife with redundancies and inconsistencies, which is sometimes results from the wrong problem being considered or the wrong path of research taken. The machine will scrutinize the concepts indigenous to that field of physics, as well as concepts from other fields that impinge on it, as well as concepts that barely touch it from fields such as art, music, history, philosophy. And lo and behold, it may turn out that one of those concepts gives the machine the clue to where to look for the proper research problem or the proper research path. Back down to the present, where groups of scientists are working with machines. By scientists, I have in mind medical scientists. And by machines, I have in mind machines running algorithms like Semantic Scholar, invented at the Simon Institute, which has the potential, in fact, the ability to look for relations among over 200 million scientific papers, and have in mind medical scientific papers. These teams are actually working together today to better understand and deal with COVID-19. And indeed, the hypotheses they will come up with are far wider and deeper than those made by a scientist working alone. So as with Deep Dream, AlphaGo, GAN, and CAN, machines can imagine what we cannot and see what we cannot. So today I've begun with human creativity, then moved to machine creativity, covering as well collaborations between humans and machines. And all this points to a future in which creative machines will work by themselves. This means that in a not too distant future, machines will have evolved that have a set of emotions, consciousness, and creativity that are duplicates of ours. That will be the age of artificial general intelligence. These machines will be as smart as us. And at that point, the line will be erased between artificial intelligence, which I always consider to be an oxymoron, and human intelligence, and there will be only intelligence. Some years beyond that, machines will have emerged that will be much, much, much smarter than us. And they may well, this will be the age of artificial superintelligence. And these machines may well have a set of emotions and a consciousness which will differ from ours in ways we cannot even imagine. That's reasonable because machine physiology differs from ours. Machine physiology right now is silicon. Who knows what it will be in the future? But one thing is for sure, these machines will have a creativity that far, far, far surpasses ours because machines have the potential for unlimited creativity. So at this point, we may ask, well, what's our role going to be in all this? Are we going to be relegated to be household pets, as some dystopian scenarios imply? But this is a very, very complex question. It's exceedingly complex because at that point in time, the notion of what it is to be a human being will have been dramatically, dramatically, dramatically transformed because are we not merging with machines? And this may not be a bad idea because this may be the path for the survival of the human race, with human having a very different concept for what it is now. And that may not be a bad idea because by that time, we will have merged with machines, and machines have the potential for looking into the future, sensing problems, getting to work on them, something that we don't seem to be very good at. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks so much, Arthur.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, you can stop sharing now.
Right.
Okay, guys. So we're out of time, but I would love to open the floor for some questions. And I know we have some interesting people in the audience. Andy Lomas, you are especially on my radar, and I know you've put a comment. It was just a comment in the chat, but I don't know whether you want to talk to Arthur directly. Can we allow that, Sean? Or does Andy have to be I believe he's able to speak.
Yeah, I can enable
Great.
Andy to talk so he can ask his question now, I think.
That would be great.
Well, thank you. Actually, firstly, just a really good talk, Arthur. I read your book after I was meeting you at the Flux party a year ago. I got your book over Christmas, and there's really, some really provocative, interesting work. So yeah, actually, just a small comment on one of the things you were saying, I guess about Newtonian things, Newtonian systems and predictability. I just sort of comment that actually, a purely Newtonian dynamics system can be chaotic. In particular, things like the three body problem. It doesn't need to have any rounding or anything like that. Just pure Newtonian dynamics. No relativity needed. It can still be a chaotic system.
Yeah, there's no relativity needed in building computers.
Or even computers. It's just like, in the real world, no rounding needed is still chaos.
Right. Yeah. Rounding is one additional possibility.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy, for that. We have another question from Christina, and I think that's a really interesting one. She's simply asking, is the human race ready for that, i.e. the point that you're trying to make? What I was really interested in, Arthur, is how you're looking at an AI, the AI intelligence as a as a co-conspirator, like something that will actually help us survive. So I'd love you to just talk a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. First of all, is the human race ready for that? Well, it will be when it comes. Okay, the human race will have changed by then. I'm sorry, what was your question again?
My question was more to do with, yeah, how we can work together with the AIs and actually save ourselves with that additional intelligence.
Oh yes, I mean, I see a future in which there will be AIs working by themselves and collaborations between humans and AIs, as well as by that time humans will be in large part a machine. There is already collaboration with AIs today, as I showed in the continuator talk with the AI continuator creating improvisations in response to the human's improvisation. There are artists working with AIs doing paintings, and in fact, AIs are allowing artists to paint, are showing artists how to paint differently. So art has changed, music has changed, and literature has changed as well. And I would love to give talks on all those things, but I guess we're out of time.
So just to follow up, so Christina's saying she loves your optimism, and it is an interesting optimism. So what would you say are the risks of some of this stuff? Because and that would be a good focus.
Well, I think the major risk with AI is not having enough AI. I mean, AIs, for example, can read X-rays and diagnose tumors much better than human beings can. AI just persevere. They go on and on. They don't get tired. They don't have arguments with friends. Driverless cars will be a reality in 10, 20, 30 years. That will cut out deaths on highways. Sometime in the future, people won't even remember driving cars. It's just such a quaint thing. So AIs in health can make our life much easier. Okay. So I'm very optimistic about it. I mean, projecting more than 5 years into the future now is dangerous. Okay, who knew 20 years ago that things would be as they are now? And dystopian scenarios are unfortunately sell many books, and they sell many newspapers, and so too many people are hit with those rather than an upstart part, which is what I meant my book to be, on the optimistic side of AI. How AIs can in fact increase our own creativity.
Yeah, and one final question, because I know we're out of time, is from Daniela. Very thought-provoking talk. Will machines eventually have the imperative of life?
Oh, sure. Why not? They will be alive. I mean, as I said, they will, by reading the web, they will be able to imitate very well. They'll pass Turing tests for life, let's say. And eventually they will value life. I mean, a very nice truth. It's a Hollywood example of that is in the movie, the Rodney, what was that movie out some years ago? I forgot the name of it was, where you have cyborgs and Harrison Ford hunts down cyborgs. Yes, there will be cyborg type of beings, and they will have an imperative for life. They will not want to die. And in fact, in the future, survivors will be of our race will probably be AIs.
Interesting.
Unless we can get our act together and meld well with machines.
Yeah,
if we're visited by ETs, it will very likely be AIs unless they find a wormhole.
Blade Runner was the film.
Blade Runner, yes.
Yeah, I do remember seeing some research where they were enabling sort of robots to eat trash in order to continue that and to get fuel from that, which I thought was a fantastic.
That was a cartoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was a real thing. Yeah, a real thing. Fantastic, Arthur. Thanks so much for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And yeah, brilliant stuff as always. And let's have a break now. We've got 10 minutes, I believe, before the next session. Just to say to everyone, we have an event tonight, a code reality event, which is going to be a bit different. It's mixed reality, looking at mixed reality. I'll put in the chat the instructions for joining. But yeah, thanks to everyone for joining, and thanks for a great session.
Thank you.